It started like any other Thursday night. I was sitting in the dining room with a stack of printed-out worksheets, helping Derek put together his school project, a timeline of famous American infrastructure. He'd picked bridges. I was proud of that. Not many 13-year-olds would get excited about the mechanics of suspension tension, but that was Derek. A smart kid. Curious. Gentle. The kind of boy who could spend hours tinkering with cardboard and duct tape and still smile like he just won a Nobel. We'd been printing pictures off my laptop, Golden Gate, Brooklyn, Chesapeake Bay. The printer, old and stubborn, had been acting up, skipping every other sheet and making us wait for what felt like hours between jobs. I was just about to reboot the system when it made a mechanical groan and spat out something unexpected. It wasn't a bridge. It was a hotel reservation. At first, I didn't process it. I assumed it was spam or some leftover confirmation from a work trip Rachel had planned months ago. But the logo at the top caught my eye. Hyatt Regency Austin. I looked closer. The dates were recent, this weekend. The reservation was under her name, Rachel Montgomery. For 2 guests. That's when the air around me seemed to thicken. I picked up the sheet, my fingers suddenly trembling. The check-in date matched the exact weekend she told me she'd be flying to Tampa to visit her aunt who, according to her, was barely hanging on. She'd even cried while packing. I didn't want to believe it. For a long second, I convinced myself there had to be some mistake. Maybe she booked it for someone else. Maybe it was a clerical error. My mind went into defensive mode, trying to protect me from what I already knew. "Dad?" Derek said, eyeing me. "You okay?" I blinked. Forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy. Just, printer's weird." I tucked the paper under the folder of bridge diagrams, heart-thudding, and excused myself to the kitchen under the pretense of restarting the router. Really, I needed a moment to breathe. I waited until Derek went to bed before I brought it up. Rachel got home late, around 9:30, claiming her flight was delayed. She still had her rolling suitcase in hand, same sky blue one she always used. She looked tired, but not like someone who had spent the weekend at a hospice. Her makeup was still intact, hairbrushed, her clothes neat, like she'd stepped out of a boutique, not a hospital room. We made small talk. She kissed my cheek. I offered her tea, which she declined. Then I pulled the folded printout from my pocket and placed it silently on the kitchen table. She barely blinked when she saw it. Just leaned over, read the headline, reservation confirmation, Hyatt Regency Austin, scanned her name, and let out a short, humorless laugh. "Oh God," she said, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. That? I repeated, unable to hide the disbelief in my voice. "I told Emily not to send it to the printer," she continued, more to herself than to me. "She's terrible with online stuff. I made that booking for her. Just a favor." "Emily?" I asked. "Your coworker?" "Yeah. She and her boyfriend were doing a weekend thing. I helped her set it up during lunch. It must have synced to the wrong device. You know I have my phone hooked up to both printers." She said it all so easily, so fluidly, like reading from a script. Her tone was calm. Assured. Like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I was the paranoid husband accusing her of something absurd. I studied her face, looking for cracks. There were none. She even chuckled a little. "Honestly, Mark, if I were going to cheat on you, do you really think I'd let the evidence print in our own home office?" And there it was, the twist. The joke. The implied ridiculousness of my suspicion. It was clever. Disarming. I almost laughed with her. Almost. But a flicker of something gave her away. When she looked down, her eyes didn't land on the paper. They darted to the side like she was searching for an exit, not a truth. And her hands, while poised, were too still. Like they'd been trained to stay composed. I didn't press her that night. I told her I believed her. She smiled, relieved. Kissed me again. Said I was sweet for being concerned. Then she went upstairs to shower, humming under her breath like nothing had happened. But something had. And I couldn't let it go. In our 15 years together, Rachel had told a few small lies, white lies, harmless ones. About eating the last slice of cake or skipping her morning jog. But this wasn't small. This was different. And she didn't seem scared. She seemed practiced. That scared me more than anything. I stayed up for hours that night, staring at that piece of paper. My rational brain kept trying to do the math. If it wasn't her reservation, why was her full name on it? Why did the contact email match hers? Why had it been stored in the print queue and not emailed like she claimed? Eventually, I opened her email on my phone while she slept. Not to snoop. Just to confirm what I hoped would calm my nerves. Nothing. No message to or from Emily about a hotel. No forwarded confirmation. No thank you for helping with the reservation. In fact, no communication with Emily at all in the last month. I went to sleep around 3 a.m., the paper still sitting on the kitchen counter, mocking me. After that night, I couldn't stop replaying her reaction. The way Rachel brushed off the hotel confirmation like it was a scheduling error instead of a smoking G***N, it haunted me. Her confidence had a texture to it, too smooth, too controlled. It wasn't the nervous deflection of someone caught off guard. It was the practiced poise of someone who had prepared to lie and knew how to do it well. And once doubt finds a crack, it doesn't just slip in, it floods everything. The next few days were a blur of pretend normalcy. She went back to her routines, morning runs, work calls, overly casual texts from the office. I tried to mirror her energy, but inside I was unraveling. It's a strange thing, watching someone you thought you knew move through your home like a stranger dressed in your wife's skin. Every smile, every touch started to feel like theater. I began to see our history differently, like flipping through an old photo album and realizing every second frame was a lie. It started with the retreats. For years, Rachel had gone on these so-called women's retreats. Yoga, she'd say. Or meditation. Time to recharge. I never argued. I figured everyone needed a reset now and then, and she always came back relaxed, glowing even. But now in hindsight, that glow felt sinister. It wasn't relaxation. It was satisfaction. Fulfillment. Something I clearly hadn't given her. And now that I thought about it, none of her friends ever picked up when I called. I used to think they were just off-grid practicing mindfulness or whatever. But now I wasn't so sure those women even existed. One time, maybe 2 years back, she called me from the cabin to tell me the Wi-Fi was down. She said they were going into town for groceries and wouldn't be reachable. I didn't think twice. But now every one of those innocent weekends felt like a red flag I had chosen not to see. Then there were the passwords. 6 months ago, Rachel changed the lock screen on her phone. Nothing unusual about that, we all do it. But she stopped leaving her phone face up. Stopped charging it in the kitchen. Started sleeping with it under her pillow. I remember teasing her once, saying she acted like a teenager hiding texts from a boyfriend. She laughed it off. Said I was being silly. That she just liked having it close in case work called. But now I knew no one in her office called after midnight. No one ever had. And then the cologne. I can't believe I forgot about the cologne. 3 weeks before the hotel confirmation, I found a receipt in her glove compartment. I had borrowed her car to pick up takeout, nothing dramatic. But the receipt was folded, tucked beneath a pair of gloves in the passenger side drawer. I wasn't looking for anything. I just happened to find it when I was reaching for napkins. The store? A high-end fragrance boutique in the mall. The item? A $190 bottle of Tom Ford cologne. I remember staring at the slip of paper, confused. It wasn't for me, I didn't wear cologne. Never had. And when I asked her about it later that night, she smiled and said it was a gift for her brother. Said his birthday was coming up and he loved that brand. I bought it. Why wouldn't I? It made sense. Logical. She's always been thoughtful with gifts. Only her brother's birthday isn't in April. It's in August. I realized that 2 nights after the hotel printout when I opened our family calendar to find a dentist appointment and saw Ethan's birthday, August 23rd, circled in orange. So who was the cologne really for? The more I looked back, the more little moments started connecting into something larger, something uglier. There was the way she started avoiding in Macy about a year ago, always with an excuse, too tired, too stressed, not feeling well. At first, I chalked it up to the usual wear and tear of long-term marriage. But even our conversations dried up. She'd drift away when I spoke, nod and smile, but with vacant eyes. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped telling me about hers. There was a time she couldn't wait to show me the weird stuff she found on Twitter or share *TS from her favorite forums. We'd sit on the couch with her feet in my lap, laughing at memes, bickering about politics, making plans for imaginary vacations. We were friends once. Partners. But lately, it felt like we were co-workers in a failing company, cordial, efficient, and emotionally bankrupt. And then, of course, there was the distance. Not physical, though that was there too, but emotional. She used to text me during the day. Little things. Thinking of you. Look what Derek said. Miss your face. They stopped gradually. Then completely. When I pointed it out, she said, I didn't think you'd notice. You're always so busy. Busy? I work 9 to 5. I'm home for dinner every night. I coach Derek's baseball team. I do the dishes, mow the lawn, rub her shoulders when she's tired. What part of my life screams neglect? But I didn't say that. I just nodded. Like I always did. Like a fool. That week, I started keeping a mental log of everything she did. Not out of spite. Not to trap her. But because I needed clarity. I needed something solid. Doubt is a corrosive thing. It eats at your bones. It makes you question not just the other person, but yourself. One night, I watched her take a phone call in the driveway. She said it was from work, but when I stepped outside to offer her a coffee, she turned her back to me, lowered her voice, said, "I'll call you back," and hung up before I could hear anything else. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, hon, thanks for the coffee." She hadn't even touched it. By the fourth day, I'd convinced myself I was imagining it. That maybe I was projecting. Maybe I was paranoid. I mean, things happen, right? People drift. That doesn't always mean betrayal. But then came the envelope. I found it under the passenger seat of her car while searching for Derek's missing water bottle. A printed envelope with no return address, sealed but slightly open. Inside was a receipt different from the cologne one. This one was handwritten. A small boutique restaurant in Austin. One I didn't recognize. Dinner for two. Wine pairing. Rose petals optional, marked with a check. Date of service? The same Saturday she was visiting her aunt. No mention of Emily. No, for a friend. No corporate reimbursement. My stomach twisted. My throat went dry. There was no more rationalizing. No more giving her the benefit of the doubt. These weren't random moments. These weren't coincidences. This wasn't overthinking. This was a pattern, intentional, repeated, and cold. And suddenly everything made perfect sense. There's a difference between suspecting something and knowing it. Suspicions whisper. Knowledge roars. And when the roar came, it wasn't from Rachel's mouth, it came from numbers. Cold, sterile numbers printed in black ink on a white report that landed in my email at 11:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I hadn't told anyone about the DNA test. Not a soul. It felt like the kind of thing only a desperate, broken man would do. The kind of move someone makes at the end of a long, shameful fall. And I wasn't proud of it, not the way I took Derek's toothbrush from the bathroom cabinet, not the way I carefully sealed it in a sterile packet, not the way I sent it off like some coward hoping the universe would just lie to me. But I had to know. Derek was 13. I had raised him from the moment he took his first breath. I'd held his tiny body in my arms when he had colic at 3 weeks old. I taught him how to ride a bike, how to tie his cleats, how to make the perfect grilled cheese. He called me Dad in a voice that lately had started to sound almost like mine. I never doubted he was mine until Rachel gave me reason to. I told myself the test would come back 99.9%. I told myself I was being paranoid, obsessed, bitter. I actually prayed that I would feel like a fool when the results came in. But instead it said, probability of paternity, 0%. 0. The world stopped. I stared at that number for maybe 5 straight minutes before I even blinked. I reread the report 3 times. Checked the names, the ID numbers, the date. Then again. Still 0. I dropped my phone. It bounced off the kitchen counter and hit the tile with a sharp crack. I didn't even pick it up right away. I just sat there, staring at the floor, waiting for my heartbeat to either slow down or stop completely. It didn't. Rachel had told me back when she was pregnant that she was surprised. We hadn't been trying. I remember how she smiled with that tired joy, said she thought she had the flu. Then she handed me the test in a little box wrapped with a ribbon. I cried. I actually cried. All this time. I thought I had been building a life. Turns out I was just maintaining someone else's illusion. But that wasn't the worst part. Not yet. That came when I opened her old laptop. We'd both recently upgraded, and her previous MacBook had been collecting dust in the closet. It was supposed to be decommissioned, wiped, recycled. She hadn't used it in months. I only pulled it out because Derek had a homework assignment due and our Wi-Fi was being temperamental. I figured maybe the old laptop would still work offline for word processing. I never expected it to open without a password. It did. And that's when I found it. Buried in a folder called Yoga Retreat 2003. A title so boring it was almost genius. I don't know what made me click on it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was God. Maybe I just hated myself enough at that point to want more pain. Inside there were files. Lots of them. PDFs. *TS. Videos. Names like cedarsuite.mov and January expenses PNG. I clicked on the video first. It was a recording from a hotel room. Dim lighting. A man holding the camera, breathing heavily. Rachel walked into frame. She was in a robe holding 2 champagne flutes. She looked happy, unburdened. She leaned in and kissed him, soft and slow. The camera lowered. They laughed. She called him Jake. Jake. I remembered Jake. He worked with her. Years ago, he was at her office holiday party one time. He wore a brown blazer and told me he loved wine but hated wine people. I remember thinking he was kind of funny, kind of charming. And now I was watching him kiss my wife. There was another clip. Her sitting on a hotel bed in that same Austin hotel from the confirmation printout. She was talking into the camera, probably his phone. "I don't know how long I can keep lying to Mark," she said, looking almost guilty. "He's just so reliable. Like a bank account. Always there." I paused the video and stared at the wall for a long time. Reliable as a bank account. That's what I had become to her. Not a husband. Not a person. A utility. I scrolled through the folder in a trance. More videos. Chat transcripts. Some of them years old. Conversations where she talked about divorce like it was a long-term fantasy. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just waiting for Derek to turn 18 so I can finally breathe. She wrote in one chat from 2016. In another, "Mark is sweet. Safe. He'll never leave me. I think that's why I can't stop." I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop against the wall. But I didn't. I just sat there with it on my lap, absorbing the slow death of everything I thought was true. Eventually, I closed the screen and placed it back on the shelf like it was radioactive. I didn't know what to do next. There's no manual for this. No handbook that says, "Here's what to do when your wife cheats. Your son isn't yours. And your life is a carefully curated fiction." Couldn't even cry. I was beyond that. Numbness is worse than pain because at least pain is proof you're alive. Numbness just tells you the damage is too deep to feel. That night, Rachel was in the living room watching some true crime documentary. She looked up when I walked past her and asked if I wanted tea. I said no. She smiled like everything was fine. And I stood there, staring at her, thinking, "You're the one with the mask. You've been wearing it for so long. I don't even know what your real face looks like anymore." I didn't confront her that night. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because now I had something better than suspicion. I had confirmation. The moment I decided to confront Rachel, I thought the hard part was over. It wasn't. The hard part came after, when words turned into war and our home, the one we built room by room, memory by memory, became a battleground. Not just between Rachel and me, but between truth and image. Between love and legacy. And at the center of it all stood Derek. He heard us before he saw us. It started in the kitchen. I came in while she was rinsing fruit, like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't shattered my life and casually kept on chopping apples for her green smoothies. I placed the DNA test on the counter. Just slid it there, no ceremony, no anger. Just finality. She glanced down, blinked once, then looked back up at me. "What is this?" "You know exactly what it is." She didn't pick it up. She didn't deny it. Instead, she let out a breath, slow and shaky, and said, "You had no right." "No right?" My voice cracked. "No right to know the truth? You're violating trust. You're digging through my past like it's evidence in a trial." "Because it is," I snapped. "Don't you dare turn this around." That's when Derek walked in. "Dad? Mom? What's going on?" Rachel spun to him instantly, like she'd been waiting for her cue. Her tone softened like flipping a switch. "It's nothing, honey. Your dad's just upset." I saw it. The pivot. The shift from defense to performance. She stepped toward him, shielding the paper like a shield behind her hip. "It's about your trip, sweetheart." I lied, trying to keep the damage contained. "Your mom and I just had a disagreement." But Rachel wasn't going to let it go that easily. "No," she said, locking eyes with me. "If he's old enough to be caught in the middle, he's old enough to know what's happening." I stood frozen, unsure what game she was playing, until she pulled the nuclear card. "Your father's been spying on me," she said calmly. "He went through my things. He installed software. He even took your toothbrush to run a DNA test." Derek blinked. "What?" She turned to him, the corners of her mouth trembling just enough to look sincere. "He thinks you're not his son." Silence hit the kitchen like an explosion without sound. Derek looked at her, then at me, then back at the crumpled envelope on the counter. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means your father doesn't trust me," she said, her voice cracking now, perfectly timed. "He's turning this house into a courtroom, and you're just another file to him." "That's not true," I said quickly, stepping forward. "Derek, I didn't want to believe it. I hoped it wasn't true. But you did it anyway," Rachel cut in. "I did it because I needed to know," I said, trying to hold back the storm in my chest. "Because lies have been growing here for years, and I couldn't breathe anymore." Rachel turned away from me and crouched slightly, placing both hands gently on Derek's arms. "Sweetheart, I know this is scary, but your dad, he's not well right now." That was it. That was her strategy. Make me look like the paranoid one. The danger. She wasn't defending herself. She was building a custody case. I looked at Derek. His face was blank. His mouth slightly open, like a kid trying to solve a math problem he never asked for. "I don't get it," he finally said. "Why would you test me? Why would you think I'm not yours?" I had no answer that wouldn't break him. So I reached for the only thing I had left, truth. "Because I found proof your mom hasn't been honest with me," I said. "And I needed to know if what I've lived for the past 13 years was real." He flinched like I'd hit him. "So I'm not your son?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Rachel jumped in. "You'll always be our son, honey. No matter what." "No," I said, correcting her. "He'll always be my son. I raised him. I taught him everything he knows. Blood doesn't change that. But lying about it, that changes everything." Rachel's face hardened like ice forming in real time. "You're twisting this." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally telling the truth." That night, Derek didn't talk to either of us. He stayed locked in his room. No music, no texting, not even the hum of his computer. Just silence. I sat outside his door for hours, staring at the carpet, waiting for him to say anything. He didn't. Rachel, meanwhile, went into damage control. She deleted files from her laptop. She started calling her friends soft PR, planting seeds. "Mark's not doing well," I heard her say once. "He's unraveling." She began building her story, one calculated whisper at a time. Couldn't stop her. I had evidence, but she had influence. For years, she was the organized one, the PDA hero, the volunteer, the woman who baked perfect brownies and remembered every birthday. People loved her. And now, she was using that currency to buy a new narrative. 2 days later, I came home from work to find a manila envelope on the porch. Inside was a letter from a lawyer, hers. She was accusing me of emotional instability, claiming my actions posed a risk to the psychological well-being of our child. That's when I knew. She was going to try to take Derek. Not because she wanted him, because she wanted to punish me. The next morning, Derek finally came out of his room. He sat across from me at the table, pale and stiff. "Is it true?" he asked. "About the test?" I nodded. "Yes." "Is it also true that you've been spying on Mom?" I hesitated. "I was watching, because I was afraid of what I'd find." He exhaled sharply, almost a laugh. "Well, you found it." Silence. Then he said something that cut deeper than the test ever could. "I wish you never told me." I swallowed. "I thought you deserved the truth." "I didn't want the truth," he said. "I wanted parents who didn't destroy everything." He stood to leave, then stopped. "So what now? You just kick her out? Pretend none of this happened?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm still figuring that out." He walked away without another word. That evening, he went with her to stay at her sister's house. She told him I needed space. I'm sure she painted it with just enough poison to make him believe it was my fault, that I was too fragile, too angry, too broken to be trusted. But I wasn't broken. I was awake. I let a week pass before I reached out. I sent Derek a message. No pressure. Just told him I missed him, that he could ask me anything, no filters, no lies. 2 days later, he texted back, "Can we talk? I have questions." We met at a cafe halfway between my place and his aunt's. He sat down with his hoodie up and arms crossed. I gave him the file. Not the videos. Not the chat logs. Just the receipts. The hotel booking. The DNA test. Some emails where she admitted everything. He read in silence for 15 minutes. When he looked up, his eyes were glassy. "Why didn't she just tell you?" he asked. "I don't know. Why didn't she tell me?" I didn't have an answer for that either. But then he said the thing that made every second of pain worth it. "I'm mad at you, but I'm more mad at her." I nodded. He looked down at the DNA results again. "I guess this doesn't change how I feel," he said. "You're still Dad." My chest tightened. My throat locked. I wanted to hug him, but I didn't. I let him speak. Let him lead. "She's not who I thought she was," he said. "None of this is." "I know." He stood up. "Can I stay with you for a while?" I nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. But he came home with me that night. And for the first time in weeks, the house felt less like a war zone and more like a place where truth could finally breathe. There's a moment somewhere past the heartbreak and the silence when something shifts. You stop waiting for apologies. You stop hoping for resolution. You stop hurting and you start planning. That's where I was. Rachel thought I'd stay stuck in that limbo forever, too heartbroken to fight back, too ashamed to act. She was wrong. The truth had burned through the fog. I saw everything clearly now. And I was done reacting. It was time to act. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a litigator who didn't flinch at messy divorces. A woman named Melissa West. She came highly recommended and had a reputation for being composed, lethal, and utterly allergic to nonsense. I remember sitting across from her in her glass-walled office, documents spread across the table like pieces of a dismantled bomb. She didn't look surprised by anything, not the DNA test, not the infidelity, not even the manipulation tactics Rachel had started weaving into her custody threats. She glanced at the evidence and then looked up at me. "You're not crazy," she said. "And you're not alone. What she's done, this isn't just a betrayal. It's a breach of every legal and ethical contract in the book. You want to fight back?" "Yes," I said, my voice firmer than it had been in weeks. "But I don't want revenge. I want justice. I want control back." Melissa nodded. "Then let's start with the facts." Over the next week, we compiled everything: hotel records, emails, receipts, the DNA results, and copies of messages I'd pulled from her old laptop. We had everything timestamped, notarized, cataloged. I didn't even know people could we *p***nice truth this cleanly. While Melissa handled the legal side, I moved on to the financial. Rachel and I had joint accounts: checking, savings, credit cards, a brokerage. We'd always shared everything because I believed that's what marriage meant. But trust wasn't part of this arrangement anymore, and I wasn't going to let her siphon our life away while I sat back licking wounds. First, I visited our bank. Armed with documentation and legal counsel on standby, I froze all joint access. Her name came off the checking and savings accounts. Every card with her name on it? Cancelled. I rekeyed the online portals. Changed every password, added two-factor authentication on every device she didn't control. She noticed fast. I got the first angry text about 2 hours later. "Rachel, Mark, my card just got declined at the grocery store. What are you doing?" I didn't respond. 2 minutes later. "Rachel, are you serious? I can't even pay for gas. This is childish." I still didn't answer. And then a third. "Rachel, you're really going to make this ugly, huh?" No, I wasn't making it ugly. I was cleaning up the mess she'd made and hidden for years. She had always presented herself as composed, put together, the type of person who charmed people in rooms with soft smiles and practiced empathy. But behind closed doors, when she realized the ground was shifting under her, she panicked. That's when I remembered the foundation. Rachel served as an advisor on the board of a local nonprofit, the Norwell Foundation. They did good work: community grants, food drives, youth outreach. But recently, she'd become the face of the Executive Oversight Task Force. She used to brag about it like it was a second job. I used to think it was noble. Until I looked at our old financial records and saw something odd: 2 charges from the foundation's card to a resort spa, a furniture store, and most notably, a 3-day stay at the same Hyatt hotel in Austin. I cross-referenced the transaction log she forwarded for tax deductions last year. That same stay was labeled board retreat. But I knew better. So I sent a quiet email to the Norwell Foundation's compliance officer. No drama. No threats. Just a PDF packet of flagged expenses and scanned receipts with Rachel's digital signature alongside a short note. "I thought your organization might want to review this before finalizing your next board meeting." I never got a response. But within 48 hours, Rachel's bio disappeared from their website. Her name vanished from all social platforms. And by Friday, a mass email went out to donors. Due to an internal review of expense records, Ms. Rachel Montgomery has been temporarily suspended from advisory duties. The email didn't mention me, didn't mention the hotel, but the timing spoke volumes. Rachel called that night. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Congratulations, she said bitterly. You've ruined everything. I listened twice. Once for information, once for closure. But I hadn't ruined anything. She did. I just lit the emergency lights. By the end of the month, everything was under my control. All joint assets were locked. My attorney had filed for divorce with formal allegations of marital fraud and paternity misrepresentation. Derek, for the time being, had moved in with me. He was still quiet, still processing, but at least we were under the same roof again. I gave him space. He gave me his presence. That was enough. Rachel tried to retaliate in small ways, petty jabs. She filed for temporary financial support. Melissa countered with proof of financial misrepresentation. She tried to make Derek feel guilty about staying with me. That backfired when he asked her, point blank, why did you lie about Dad? I started hearing whispers around town, nothing I had spread, but things that floated through neighbors like pollen in spring. That Rachel wasn't who she pretended to be. That something had gone wrong. But I didn't chase those stories. I had my own to manage. I began keeping a written log. Not for revenge. Not even for court. Just for me. Each entry was a timestamp of healing. Tuesday, Derek helped make dinner. We didn't talk much, but he asked if I still liked football. I told him I never stopped. Friday, called my mother for the first time in a month. She cried. Said she was proud of me. Sunday, slept through the night. Small victories. But they mattered. Rachel used to call me predictable. Stable. Reliable. And maybe I was. But she mistook stability for weakness. Predictability for powerlessness. She forgot that reliability is what holds a damn family together. And now? I held every card. I expected resistance, but I underestimated how far Rachel would go. When freezing accounts and exposing her misdeeds didn't bring me to heal, she escalated. She filed a police report. Domestic violence. I got the call at work. Had to leave mid-meeting, heart racing, palms sweating, fearing what I was walking into. But I had prepared. Weeks before, I'd installed discrete security cameras inside the house, one in the kitchen, one in the hallway. I'd never planned to use them. Just a precaution. Now they were my lifeline. The footage showed exactly what I knew, me keeping to myself, Rachel staging arguments, even provoking them. One clip caught her knocking over a vase, then yelling like I'd done it. The cops reviewed everything. Charges dropped. Just like that. But it changed something in me. Up until then, part of me still hoped she'd come clean, show some humility. That hope died with that false report. Derek heard about it, of course he did. Rachel had tried to spin it her way, but he wasn't buying it anymore. Especially not after he quietly reached out to the man whose name had haunted our family, Jake. One meeting later, a paternity test confirmed what I already knew. Derek's biological father wasn't me. But when Derek came home after that visit, he didn't say much. He just sat at the table, dropped his backpack, and said, "He's not you." And from that day on, he stopped calling her mom. The court date came fast. She tried to play the victim, pleaded for empathy, called herself a woman who made one mistake. But the judge didn't buy it. Neither did the documentation. Or the videos. Or the receipts. The verdict was swift. Paternity fraud. Hidden finances. Defamation. Her bid for alimony? Denied. Custody? Joint, but Derek was old enough to choose and he'd already chosen. The court granted her only her personal belongings and a quiet warning. Any more false accusations and future visitation could be at risk. She lost more than a marriage. Her job at the foundation was gone. Her name was off every board, every social invite. Friends who once praised her started pulling away. The image she built so carefully cracked and then crumbled. As for Derek, he disappeared from my life for a while. I let him. I didn't chase. I knew he needed time. And when he came back, he was quieter. Older, somehow. He didn't call me Dad right away, but one day he asked if I wanted to grab burgers. We didn't talk about what happened. We didn't need to. I didn't ruin her life. She did that all on her own. Her final words to me as she walked out of the courtroom still echo, "You destroyed me." But no. She handed me the hammer. I just stopped pretending I didn't see it.